The house was silent when I stepped inside again, the kind of silence that collects in corners and settles like patterned dust. The living room remained sealed in the same stillness it held in November 2006, curtains half drawn, light filtering through as if careful not to disturb anything. The floorboards gave a muted sigh beneath my weight, the same sigh they offered when we first arrived that winter morning. Time had not touched this place, only paused around it, as if the air itself remembered what happened and refused to move forward. Her name was Aurelia Kline, age 27, a student of industrial design at the local campus. She lived with a soft precision, sketches pinned on cork walls, measuring tools aligned in trays, and an aroma of paint and graphite that once floated through this home like her quiet ambition. Aurelia had grown up in Grayford Township, the eldest of three, with a voice often described as steady and patient. Those who knew her always said she listened more than she spoke, yet every idea she carried had structure, calculation, intention. That November morning we entered with standard procedure and steady composure. But there had been something weightless in the room then, an absence that felt too heavy to name. No sign of forced entry, no scattered belongings, only stillness. Her final design notebook lay open on the table, a faint pencil line suspended mid-curve, as if she lifted her hand and never returned to complete the intention. Her tea sat cooled on the desk. Her coat hung by the door. The world had continued, but she had paused mid-thought, mid-life. I remember the air that first day. No scent of alarm, just quiet and the faint perfume of jasmine oil she seemed to favor. The others moved through the room with their careful steps, gloves tightening, pens ready. I watched the doorway, half expecting her to return from a morning walk or draw breath in the room again, explaining how she had simply stepped out. But nothing ever broke the hush. Now, returning after the case reopened on a tip, the light felt softer than memory allowed. The dust no longer floated but remained settled, as if every object were holding its breath. We were older, more rigid, seasoned by years of files and photographs. The walls, however, looked unchanged. The file had landed back on my desk 2 weeks earlier. KLINE Aurelia unresolved, re-review requested. The request came from a retired deputy who had discovered a small envelope among archived evidence logs, a misplaced item once categorized incorrectly, a detail overlooked, a detail that reanimated the case like a quiet echo. In re-entering her home, I carried that envelope with me, sealed, unaddressed, yellowed at the edges. A single photograph sat framed on the mantel. It had stood there 18 years ago too, before she vanished. Aurelia in a workshop apron, hair tied back loosely, holding a model bridge she designed during her senior assessment. Behind her, the river that curved through campus glimmered in late afternoon color. Her expression was modest, neutral, but her eyes carried a type of forward vision. She seemed to see something not yet built. I walked past the mantel, allowing the scent of paper, old wood, and faint jasmine to gather in my lungs. There was no urgency now, only precision. The kitchen tiles were unchanged, pale green with a soft sheen. A mug rested near the sink, its ceramic glaze faintly cracked. Not unusual, not pointed, just quiet signs of vacancy. And yet the scene still held a shape of presence, as if her final step echoed through the laid-out order of her life. Her design room held the most memory. The chalkboard wall, faint sketches of arch supports and structural joints, lines overlapping like thoughts paused midstream. Roll after roll of tracing paper stacked neatly in wicker baskets, brushes organized by width. A small desk lamp with a pull chain she likely flicked on every night before sketching late into calm hours. I reached for the locked drawer beneath the desk, the same drawer we had cataloged but never fully understood. Inside, her journals contained with thin ribbons. We had reviewed them in 2006 but found nothing beyond project notes, submission assignments, and quiet reflections on light, shadow, and form. No one wrote of harm or alarm. No hint of tension. She described the world through angles, through color temperature, through the curve of steel under sun. The envelope in my hand felt heavier now. Thick. Old glue dried into brittle edges. Inside, when I slid the seal open slowly, lay a memory we had missed. A receipt for a key duplicate dated 2 days before she disappeared, and a small Polaroid. Not of her, but of the side gate outside her home. Grainy, late dusk, the image capturing only a sliver of movement, someone entering through the gate, someone with their face turned from the lens. Shoulders, posture, a neutral jacket. The camera had caught a moment of simple passage. But the timestamp mattered. 21:17, the night before we found her absence. The receipt was from a locksmith 3 blocks away. We checked that shop 18 years ago, spoke with the owner. Records showed no duplicate keys under her name. Now this slip of paper, tucked and misfiled, suggested something else. She had requested a duplicate key, or someone had in her name without signature. The room felt more condensed, not darker, just focused like a lens adjusting. What was overlooked felt almost intentional in its quietness. Dialogue from those early days returned faintly. "You see any sign of break?" "No, nothing." "Door locked?" "Yes, fully." Sparse words, efficient. We had chosen directness then, not speculation. I moved toward her window. The latch remained intact, paint faded but unchipped. From here she could view the maple-lined street, children playing near the park, cyclists passing on autumn afternoons. She had lived without disruption, neighbors once said, without noise. A gentle draft brushed the back of my hand. I turned to the desk again, focusing on the now open space beneath the journals. Something thin rested there, a fragment of paper stuck beneath felt lining. I lifted it with tweezers, a small campus exhibition pass stamped with KLINE plus guest. The handwriting for the guest line was blank. No name, no marking. Her final show was scheduled for early winter. She never attended. I noted details, each one precise, not conclusive but arranged like beams of a structure. Her file, when reopened, had not felt like a case reborn, but rather a memory resurfacing, one that never settled. I returned to the living room and sat where she once might have sat, near the half-drained teacup. Steam long gone, but the faint scent still there. The spoon rested against porcelain lightly angled, as if set down with calm. 18 years of unresolved questions had cooled with the tea. I studied the Polaroid again, no face, just motion and timestamp, but posture mattered. The angle of the shoulder suggested familiarity, someone comfortable with her space. The gate was not forced, not lifted, simply opened. I remembered colleagues from that time, younger then, their voices crisp. Maybe she left. Everything intact. Voluntary absence. No sign of bags. That final line had never left me. In all voluntary departures there are signs of planning. Here, no suitcase, no packed notebooks, no clothing removed from hangers. Her life remained as arranged. My watch ticked with quiet rhythm, the air pressed soft. I chose to open the journal dated 3 days before she vanished. Her handwriting, precise, charcoal dark on cream paper. Light forms through structure. People, too, design pathways even in quiet. A note left by an artist who saw the world through framing. Not a warning, not a clue, but a truth. 2 pages later. Presentation approaching. Guest confirmed, unsure, must trust the process. The word guest aligned too neatly with the exhibition pass. Someone she expected, someone she did not name. The logic tightened. not through sudden revelation but gradual lines meeting at measured points. I closed the journal gently. The silence returned. 18 years ago, when we sealed the scene, I believed absence could be documented, catalogued, understood. Now I recognized it differently. Absence endures, it shapes. I stood again, the house settling behind me like a held breath released. The light through the curtains shifted, a soft stroke across the table, across the empty teacup, across the frozen curve of pencil line she never completed. This was not about dramatic discovery. It was about a detail filed under wrong code, a photograph saved without context, a receipt listing a key cut in a name that should have belonged only to her. In methodical return, truth surfaced. When I closed the envelope and placed it back in my coat, the room exhaled quietly. I stepped out, careful not to disturb what time had sealed. The door clicked with gentle finality. Outside, maple leaves lay patterned on pavement, windless. Not solved, not broken, only understood in parts. Justice, I had learned, moved with structure, not speed, not clarity, only procedure and patience. Yet Aurelia's eyes in the photograph hovered still, not demanding resolution, just presence. I paused beside the gate where the Polaroid captured a faint shape 18 years earlier. The wood grain felt smooth, unaltered. Somewhere beyond paperwork and measured steps, the human element remained subtle, unspoken, like jasmine held in late light. The station lights were low when I returned, the same quiet hue that had coated these halls during other late nights, other unfinished cases. I sat at the review desk with Aurelia's file reopened, pages methodically arranged. The small envelope lay centered, its contents fanned in order: receipt, Polaroid, exhibition pass, one thin notation slip from original cataloging. The notation slip held only 4 typed words: item logged in error. No initials, no date. The handwriting beneath the stamp, a small curved letter, possibly R, possibly K, had faded to near ghost ink. Whoever wrote it intended to correct a process, not reveal meaning. I aligned it again beside the receipt. The duplicate key was requested 2 days before she disappeared. The locksmith confirmed the order in the reissued record, though details were vague. The clerk on duty then was 19, employed for 3 months, memory thin now with time's erosion. He recalled only that the requester smiled politely, no urgency. Whether it was Aurelia or someone using her name, he could not confirm. There is a particular weight to absence, of memory, of detail, of witness certainty. It feels less like failure and more like a structure missing one critical beam. At 23:14, I requested the archived interviews. The monitor flickered, grainy footage loading from 2006. Sound hissed faintly through old speakers, a forgotten atmospheric static. Neighbor testimony first. Mrs. Platt, retired teacher, voice steady. She was kind, precise, always home by 9, never saw friends stay over. Then Gerard Kline, younger brother, eyes downcast. She never hid anything, she just worked, designed, studied, she was balanced. His hesitation carried no alarm, only memory softened by time. Then came the interview that once yielded nothing and now, in new context, acquired shape. Professor Emeritus Caldwell, Architectural Theory, age 49 then. We spoke the week she vanished, he said. She expressed concern, not fear, concern about proper credits for her bridge concept. Nothing dramatic, academic tension perhaps. At the time, we logged it as standard background. Competition, thesis pressure common. But now I replayed the final seconds of the interview. Caldwell had paused before leaving the room, gaze shifting off camera, as if at some unspoken thought. She mentioned someone attending the show, he said then, too softly. Someone she didn't expect. The remark had been buried beneath procedural noise, paper shuffle, timestamp chatter, closing lines. In 2006, we didn't see weight where it now settled. The exhibition pass on my desk, stamped KLINE plus guest, aligned without theatrics, without leaps of imagination. Quiet logic only. I opened the original evidence binder from the closet shelf, the one sealed with brittle tape. Inside, cataloged items all photographed, placements noted with spatial exactness. Item 12, keyring 3 keys. Item 13, side gate latch unforced. Item 14, window lock intact. No duplicate listed, no mention of a fourth key. If someone created a key in her name, they possessed access without disruption. They entered without breakage, without mark. They left the room as she left it, tea cooling, pencil paused. A departure without sign of return, not out of struggle but out of quiet control. I envisioned again the Polaroid, timestamp 21:17, framing movement at her gate. Not hurried, not concealed, methodical. Aurelia might have expected someone that night. She prepared tea for two. No second cup was found, but absence can suggest as much as presence. I clicked off the interview sequence and slid the Polaroid beneath the lamp. The grain sharpened, shoulders slightly hunched, posture familiar in a way that triggered no immediate recognition but implied it. A stance of someone who had walked her path before. I retrieved campus faculty files, not for motive, not for scandal, but for proximity. Caldwell had supervised her thesis. He had attended her design review. He had signed her final evaluation with the remark, precise innovation, conceptually balanced. His language mirrored her journals, structural calm. Twice their terminology aligned. Academic circles often share vocabulary, but here the alignment felt more like mirrored tone, not instruction. I logged the calendar for exhibition night. Caldwell had been listed as attending, along with other faculty. The stamp plus guest marked her pass, not his. If she expected someone, it was not him by default, someone she did not name. The hour grew into early morning, edges of thought sharpening without rush. The smell of old paper, ink, machine oil from desk hinges, all mingled, grounding time. I opened her second journal, dated weeks earlier, graphite strokes lighter but still sure. Collaboration requires transparency. I remain uncertain but hopeful. Not romantic, not distressed, just a note on working with another mind. 2 pages turned. Trust is a design. Weight must distribute evenly. She understood structural integrity, emotional and architectural alike. I studied the hand, no shake, no pressure drop. She wrote calmly to the end. I printed the locksmith's archived form, aligning each element against her handwriting. The signature on the form was not hers. A small deviation at the loop of the K in Kline. Rounder, too round. Not conclusive, but enough. It was 02:03 when I called up the secondary interview that we initially dismissed. Liam Artner, adjunct, quiet, minimal presence in her sphere. He had worked under Caldwell briefly. What was your relation to Ms. Kline? We asked then. He hesitated, gaze flicking down. Shared academic critique sessions, nothing beyond. I rewatched his hands. They tightened at his cuff, a nervousness not of guilt but withheld relevance. He mentioned once, in passing, that Aurelia had produced a bridge concept with unmatched tension distribution model. He had studied similar frameworks, not competition, but adjacency. In design, adjacency often leads to overlap. In academic presentation, Overlap leads to credit division. A duplicate key could provide entry not for harm but for access. Access to sketches, drafts, models before exhibition. A small detail, quiet, devastating only in professional realm, a fracture rather than collapse. Her disappearance then held not malice but maybe erasure, not violent but systematic, a removal of presence to avoid confrontation of ownership. I paused, the weight accumulating not emotionally but structurally. Her absence had halted a review, a lecture, a presentation that could have shifted recognition from one designer to another. Artner left academia 2 years later, relocated, sparse trace. Caldwell remained but shifted fields. None of their paths crossed again. At 03:11, the door to the review room clicked softly. Captain Harris entered, same cautious gait as years ago. "You're back in it," he said, voice low. I nodded, no elaboration. He stood near the lamp, eyes resting on the Polaroid. "That gate," he murmured, "we thought it irrelevant." "So did I said. He left without further comment. Minimal dialogue, factual. I printed final alignment notes. Duplicate key requested in her name. Request unsigned, handwriting mismatch. Guest pass unfilled. Polaroid timestamp prior to absence. Academic overlap noted. Not motive, not accusation, only logic. At dawn, I resealed the envelope, not with closure but with sequence. As I stepped outside, the horizon held pale blue quietness, same as the morning after she disappeared. 18 years, yet no collapse of detail, just slow architecture of truth. Aurelia's life, designed with intention, had been interrupted not loudly, but in a silent corridor of ambition. The wind moved lightly through parked vehicles, stirring a single sheet of paper on the hood of my car. I placed it back in the file. Justice would be procedural now. Statements revisited, signatures verified, access records subpoenaed. But the human element lingered, not dramatic, not sorrowful, just present. She had trusted the structure. It failed in ways not violent but exacting. Cold case now warmed by logic, not emotion. She deserved at least acknowledgement, of design, of vision, of unfinished line. Not solved, not closed. Only seen. The hearing room maintained a neutral air, walls painted in quiet beige, chairs aligned without ornament. I sat across from the transcription unit, Aurelia's file resting in front of me, its edges smoothed by years of handling. No press, no public observation, only procedural presence, legal counsel, state review board, and former faculty from Grayford's design department. The Polaroid lay centered on the table, encased in protective plastic. The timestamp, though faded, remained legible, 21:17. A moment captured without intent to reveal, yet now integral to sequence. Across from me, Liam Artner sat with composed posture. His eyes, directed downward, reflected neither alarm nor protest, just quiet recognition. The adjustment of his cuff echoed his earlier interview 18 years ago, same motion, same silent reflex. The board chair initiated with an unembellished tone. "Mr. Artner, for record purposes, please outline your association with the late Aurelia Kline." He answered with a near whisper, carefully measured. "Peer review sessions, shared studio environment, occasional critique exchange, nothing beyond program requirements." The same phrasing as before, but now heavier with implication. The chair continued. "Did you request a duplicate key in her name on November 14th, 2006? A moment of stillness passed. Air settled. His thumb pressed lightly against the table's edge. Yes, he said softly. No dramatics, no denial, just a fact delivered with calm acceptance. And did you enter her property that evening? Another pause, not expressive, only chronological. I did. The board noted, pens moving quietly, ink imprinting with finality rather than surprise. My voice entered only when necessary, maintaining the cold restraint demanded by process. You stated previously that your contact with her was purely professional. Why then the unauthorized entry? He inhaled once, not shaky, not regretful, controlled. A concept she developed, bridge suspension with redistributed load, was part of my ongoing research. I believed we were co-developing it. She did not. No escalation in tone, only structural truth. You intended to retrieve design drafts, I said. Not accusation, statement. Yes. What occurred once you entered? He blinked slowly, eyes recalling geometry of a room rather than emotion. She wasn't there, the sketches were. I took none, I left. There were no signs of struggle then because there had been none. No pursuit, no confrontation, only presence and departure. The chair's pen paused. You made no report of entry. Correct, he replied. You understood the academic implications. Yes. A second witness was called, Professor Caldwell. His hair grayed softly since the original interview, posture still erect, voice still deliberate. Professor, the board chair addressed, you noted in your 2006 interview that Aurelia mentioned an unexpected guest. Name was not provided. Did you know she had concerns regarding theoretical ownership? Caldwell's eyelids lowered slightly, as though reviewing archived memory. She implied discomfort in sharing finalized models. She did not elaborate. Did you advise her? To present regardless, he replied, tone neutral, to trust structure. The phrase struck quietly, the same concept she penned in her journals. Structure fails when weight distributes unevenly. The hearing continued, each question stripped of emotion, each answer precise. The conclusion did not require speculation. A key obtained without consent, an entry executed without harm, an academic boundary crossed without violence but with quiet erasure. Aurelia disappeared not through dramatic severance but through displacement, removed from presentation, her absence clearing a path for unobstructed credit. Not through active sabotage, yet the effect remained. Her case file, reclassified, now included finalized notation. Cause of absence, undetermined. Interference, confirmed. Intent, professional gain. Not criminal in statute's language, but impactful in life's architecture. When proceedings adjourned, the hallway outside felt wide, sterile. Sunlight angled through high windows, pale and unintrusive. Artner passed without escort, no audible step, his presence now defined by clarity rather than suspicion. He paused near the exit only once, turning slightly. She deserved acknowledgement, he said, voice nearly a breath. No apology, no request for absolution, only recognition of structural imbalance. I nodded once. Dialogue needed no expansion. Later in archive storage, I returned Aurelia's items to final categorization. The exhibition pass remained unfilled on its guest line. No ink required. The duplicate key receipt sat beside it, evidence of access, not violence. The Polaroid I placed last. Its image, grained soft but enduring, contained only her gait, hinge-aligned, frame square, darkness beyond. No visible face, only posture, a moment preserved in deliberate neutrality. I sealed the envelope anew. Outside, Grayford Township held afternoon quiet. Maple trees along the street cast measured shadows. Students crossed campus walkways with drafting tubes and blueprint cases, unaware of a design once halted in still air. I walked to the studio building not out of duty but return. The halls smelled of chalk dust and varnish. Light struck angled models in display cases, bridges, tensile structures, quiet geometric ambition. Aurelia's last submitted draft hung in the corner, preserved behind glass. Steel arc, balanced tension, modest annotation. Weight distributes where trust is placed. The line, simple and architectural, held more than physics. It held acknowledgement of human structure, the way one mind leans upon another, sometimes without equilibrium. I stood before it, nodding every graphite line, every measured curve. She had been precise, not only in craft but in existence. Behind glass, her work remained intact, immune to absence. I left the building without sentiment. The air outside remained level, breeze shifting leaves without urgency. Back at the car, I opened the file one final time, not to search, but to observe completeness. Key receipt now contextual. Unnamed guest verified. Entry acknowledged. Absence redefined. Closure did not arrive with revelation, only reorganization. Truth fitting into framework, not forcing shape. Justice in this instance was neither triumphant nor vacant. It existed in the simple alignment of fact, quiet correction rather than resolution. As dusk gathered, the light resembled that Polaroid evening, measured, indirect, almost hesitant. I placed the file on the passenger seat and rested hand against its cover. 18 years of stillness had shaped themselves into structure, not perfect, not relieved, only clarified. Aurelia remained present not through recovery, but recognition. Her designs, her journals, her unfinished pencil line, all part of a blueprint that refused collapse. When the horizon dimmed fully, I started the engine. The road ahead did not promise finality, only continuation. The human element, soft, restrained, unspoken, stayed with me, neither demanding nor haunting, simply existing like jasmine lingering in a room long sealed. Cases like this do not end, they stabilize. And sometimes, stability is the closest the world comes to peace.